Welcome back to another episode where author and trial lawyer Rick Friedman shares his insights and techniques to having success in the courtroom. This video is episode 2 of 6, which means if you haven't seen the previous episodes, we got to catch you up to speed, so I'll provide links in the description down below, so be sure to check those out. Speaking of which, whenever you do go down in the description, you'll also see links to Rick's books and other resources that are mentioned during this 6-episode series. Now, I want to ask you to do one simple thing. If you find yourself liking this video, then please hit the like button down below. Doing so allows the video to rank higher, reach more people, and ultimately help more people, and that's always the goal. With all that out of the way, let's get back into the interview with Rick Friedman. I hope you enjoy. As you've been crafting and hopefully, trying to improve as a lawyer, do you find yourself applying these strategies because they fit you the best, or are you finding that these strategies just by themselves are really good strategies? I'm sure it's like a mixture of both, but can you maybe figure out what has been the Rick Friedman? Yeah.
Well, I think, going back to when I started practicing, virtually everyone on the CLE circuit and the books and the articles all emphasized what I'm going to call I don't know, the term is so fraught, but the term that comes to mind is toxic masculinity. You go into that courtroom and you take control and you show everybody who's boss, and you look good at all times. You're in total, complete self-confidence, control. So I couldn't do that. I just, I was so shy, so self-conscious. It was so hard for me to present in a certain way. If I could have looked and acted like Jerry Spence or, pick your Phil Corboy, whoever, I would have done it. I just wasn't good enough in that regard to be able to do it. So I was just left with me. And, ultimately that's all we're all left with. But there are certainly people with very different styles than me. For example, let's say more confrontational than me, more outwardly confrontational and aggressive than me. There's certainly people who are very, very good who are like that. That I can be confrontational and aggressive, but that is not my natural way of being. And so really, I'm not very different in the courtroom than I am right now with you, or as I am at home with my family. There's not a whole lot of difference. And I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. It does.
Okay.
I think it actually takes me to another question. So it sounds like you classify yourself as an introvert. Is that the case?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So
yes.
It's funny. I had his name's Eric Scramlin on for an interview, and he was talking about attorney burnout, and he 100% classifies himself as an introvert. He's done over 100 trials. I classify myself as an introvert, and the best way I explain this to people, because you talk about a paradox, like you have an introvert who enjoys actually going to the courtroom, but I tell people that I can put the hat on. It just drains me. Like after trial or after being in the courtroom, even after this, I'm sure I'm going to be a little bit drained from it.
Right.
Is that how you are as well?
Well, I won't be drained from this, but I was like that. And other people are certainly like, one definition I heard of introvert extrovert is that introverts get energy from being alone and give up energy by being with other people. Extroverts get energy from being with other people and lose energy when they're alone. So, and we're all a mix of all that, of course, but
I married an extrovert.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's but we all have components of both of those in us. But I think it's not at all uncommon that trial lawyers are more introverted than the average person. Yeah.
So I want to pull out the way of the trial lawyer beyond technique. So a little bit of background about me, Rick, is I was a philosophy major in undergrad. This right here, I'm not trying to blow smoke. is blowing me away. And I'll admit that it's hard for me to finish reading it because I'll read a chapter and I know I have to stop and like pace around and just let it simmer and just like think about it and self-analyze.
Yeah,
And
good.
there's a lot of that's going on. I mean, whenever you brought in, I think it was Descartes at some point, I'm just like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is very nostalgic for me.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so whenever you said in the book, and you almost said it right now, that you kind of created a in your mind like a Frankenstein perfect situation of, you had this aspect of this lawyer, you have this aspect of Atticus Finch, and this is what you wanted in your mind.
Oh,
That
right.
is that is me 100%, and I am trying to move past that. And I think I get the anxiety of wanting to be perfect all the time and wanting to be that type of lawyer, and I'm having to accept, what you put in the book, which made me laugh, and I'm pretty sure I highlighted it, is if you go read your favorite lawyer's transcript, you're probably going to be just like a little underwhelmed about it.
Yeah.
Has that been your case over the years?
Well, let me go back for a second because
Okay.
you skipped over something that I think people may not have caught on to, which is what I was saying in the book was there's a gap between my idealized version of myself as a
Mm-hmm.
trial lawyer and how
Mm-hmm.
I actually am.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's got that gap. And I think half the time when people are having trouble in court, they're having trouble dealing with that gap. Yes, I want to be a combination of Jerry Spence and Atticus Finch and Spencer Tracy and Judgment at Nuremberg, and I want that
Yeah.
mix, and just wouldn't that be great? But that's not how life is, and that's not how anybody is, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, so yeah, the getting. I mean, this is what ultimately I think that whole book is about in one way,
Mm-hmm.
and is what I noticed in myself and in other trial lawyers is we're our own worst enemies. We have a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and particularly in terms of how we walk into the courtroom and present ourselves.
Yeah.
And why do I want to present myself? I mean, this gets right to the heart of this issue, and you
Yeah.
can think about this for yourself if you like. Why do I want them to see me as a mixture of Jerry Spence and Spencer Tracy and Atticus Finch? Because there's something I don't want them to see in me.
Mm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
something, we all get various childhood messages and then later messages, and we think we're not enough. In my case, it's, you're ugly, you're lazy, you're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
If they saw that, of course, they'd reject my case. So I have to project this other thing. And
Mm-hmm.
as I work with lawyers now, trying to help them with these issues, that the pattern is striking. It's ultimately when you scrape your way down through the layers of personality, what you get to is a point where there's something I'm terrified about me that the jury will see. And so I'm gonna put up this armor, and I'll rather put on a good show and
Yeah.
fail
Yeah.
than be myself and win, because being myself in front of other people is just too scary.
So I want to bring this concept full circle with what we were just talking about, because I think I want to take a step further than what I was seeing in the book. For me in particular, if I take the approach of, hey, look at all the bad things that the defendant did, it almost seems like I have to, in order to be trusted, be a little bit elevated in my stature, right? I mean, it's like who am I to be criticizing somebody else in order to have trust? At least that's my
So,
internal struggle.
well, that's right. And that's the problem. That's the
Yeah,
mistake, is it's not about you.
yeah,
It's totally not about you. And you are not, air quotes, criticizing the defendant. You're just
mm-hmm,
telling the jury about the defendant.
mm,
One way I've started to think about this for myself, and sometimes try to coach lawyers to think of yourself as a portal through which things flow. You are not the thing flowing. you're a garden hose
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
water's flowing through you onto the garden, which is the jury, and you're not the water, you're the thing through which the facts are flowing. And and you can hold the hose and point it in different directions, but you're not the water,
Yeah.
and you'll never be the water. Well, I won't say you'll never be the water, because if you do this well enough, and this is another one of those paradoxes, if you get yourself out of the case, totally, the other way I sometimes think of it, and I'll coach people, you're the invisible man. Jarrett Stone's not in the courtroom. He just, he's back at home with his wife and kids or whatever. He's not in the courtroom. It's the garden hose, the spotlight is in the courtroom, and I'm just shining a spotlight on different facts, different aspects of the case. It's very hard for people to do, because, but also very simple. It's can you get all the complications of your personality out of the courtroom,
Yeah.
so that you are just a conduit? And if you get that, it's not, if you can really get to that place where it's not about you, it's way more fun. It's way more effective, and paradoxically, you increase in stature. Arguing, attacking, um, being aggressive. Jurors are sick of that,
Yeah.
or at least 9 out of 10 jurors are sick of that. And and everybody's trying to sell the modern juror something constantly on their phones, on their TV, on their laptop. So if you can get out of there, paradoxically, your stature increases the more you get yourself out of the courtroom.
This is hitting home. So almost a year ago around this time, me being the nerd I am, decided, okay, I'm going to pick up a marketing book. And the marketing book was Story Brand. Have you read that or heard of that? So it's very, very similar to what you're saying, but from a marketing standpoint. The gist of it is, the seller isn't the person who is the center of this story. The seller is the Yoda, and the buyer is, Luke Skywalker. It's your job to take them as the guide from point A to point Z, which is very,
Right.
similar to what you're saying. So I immediately, as soon as I read that book, went on my website and just changed my website, because my website was just like, me. I'm the best
Yes.
ever. It's all
Yeah,
about me.
that's
And then
right.
I tried to restructure it as like, let me help you go from here to there. Like, here's my playbook, and this is about you, and here are the results that in order to go from here to there. And it's funny because Eric Scramling again, y'all are two peas in a pod. It sounds like his trial technique has basically adopted that story brand approach, which is very similar to what you're saying. So this seems like new stuff. This is not something that I've seen elsewhere, and this isn't something that I was taught in law school. Is this kind of something you've been self-developing yourself?
Well, you saw the book. I'm quoting a million different people in that
Yeah,
book, so I
yeah,
can't really claim to develop any of it myself. But um, the 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 idea that our personalities, our personal our personalities are our baggage,
yeah.
and reflect our baggage. And the more we can get our baggage out of the courtroom, yeah, I had to struggle with those issues myself, for decades. So yeah, in a sense, I developed it myself, looking for answers to, like, why is this so hard, and why does it feel so awful? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so yeah, I would say it, in a way, bringing all those ideas together. Um, what I concluded, or part of what I concluded, is, we live in a very dysfunctional culture. So it's like growing up in a dysfunctional family. You're going to have wounds just from existing in this culture. It sends you off in the wrong directions about what's
Mm-hmm.
important and what isn't important. And uh, so sorting through all of that and getting to a place of, you know, I'm going to tell the truth as best I know and understand it,
Yeah.
and let the chips fall where they fall. And it's not about me.
Yeah.
That is a hard place. It's really simple, and it's a hard place for most people to get to. And but if you get there, I can honestly say it's only been in the last 4 or 5 years where I feel like I've gotten there. It's also been only in the last 4 or 5 years I've really enjoyed trying cases. So, there's a great reward if you can get there, but it can, for most people, it takes some real soul searching and some courage to kind of let go of the things you think have been contributing to your success.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like we're at a fork in the road on the content, or like the subject matter. And I want to go down both, but at some point it's going to awkwardly seem like we're double tracking. Just bear with me here.
all right, sure.
So the strategies that we've been talking about so far seem pretty flexible about most cases, I would say. How do your strategies that we've been talking about so far depend on maybe a judge situation, or conservative versus liberal county, or like the outcome of jury selection? Or are you always sticking with this, hey, I'm a guide, I'm not the center of attention, or I'm always,
I'm always like,
spotlighting
I do my best to be like that at all times. Yeah, I don't think it's dependent on that at all. I don't care, political persuasion or whatever. I don't think it matters. I think all Americans are kind of overstimulated with people trying to sell them stuff. They're tired of the acrimony. They're tired of the polarization. Doesn't mean they're going to give up their own acrimony towards other people, but they don't like seeing it in others, and they don't like experiencing it. So I don't think it really, we're not really talking strategy. We're talking messenger. What kind of messenger am I? I'm going to be the same messenger in any forum. The actual words I choose, the way I choose to frame the issues might vary depending on audience, but not. I really try to be the same person pretty much wherever I am, and takes a lot less energy that way. And so now some things are appropriate in one setting that aren't appropriate in another setting. So that's for sure. But my way of being is pretty much the same at all times. If they are implying that your client is a liar and a cheat and is exaggerating his injuries, they've handed you this gift.